The Leard State Forest is around 8,000 hectares. About 4,000 hectares will be impacted by both these two mines. Our family's been in the Maules Creek area for 160 years. I'm a sixth generation, well, my children are sixth generation in the area. We've sustainably logged this place, and we think that it should be left for everyone else.
A lot of my friends just call me Muzz, and I've been camped out in the Leard State Forest for just over 250 days doing battle against 3 coal mines and 2 coal companies. And it's just crazy that the government would allow mining companies to mine in a state forest in a Tier 1 biodiversity area, surrounded by farmlands.
The main concern for us with the coal complex generally is just the sheer size. 24 or 5 million tonnes for a small community like ours is going to have major impacts. Once the groundwater goes down 5 to 10 metres, a lot of these trees will die. There's 34 threatened and endangered species in the Maules Creek area and in the Leard Forest in particular. These animals, this flora actually requires this specific species of box gum to survive, and once this remnant's gone, then they effectively will have to go somewhere else.
And they're going to mine right up through the middle of the forest, so there's not one block, it's separated. So the animals basically won't have anywhere to live.
For these areas to be offset is simply a joke. This forest can't be offset. The Maules Creek mine will be nearly twice as big as this mine. It'll be 330 metres deep, and it'll impact on our groundwater for the region. For farmers, the water table could reduce between 5 to 10 metres, and that's going to impact on the ability of our businesses to water our stock and to produce the produce that we have.
There's a lot of water under the ground, and when the mines go through, they'll just completely drain the aquifers.
We can see from the rehabilitation that's been done here, they're putting 10 centimetres of topsoil over the top of all this mining spoil. Trees will never ever grow in that again. We'll never get the likes of these really big trees in that spoil. And for people to think that the hollows will develop and for the animals will come back in 400 years' time is simply wrong. No one wants to move to Maules Creek. Everybody knows that there's a big coal mine going there, and for us, it's not what we envisage for our community. We want the community that we had, not the one that's coming to us.
This is called, known locally as the Drip. This section of river is often referred to as the Great Dripping Wall or Great Dripping Gorge, and it is a part of the Goulburn River that has a beautiful features such as this sandstone bluff.
And one of the reasons that we are in this amazing area is because it is one of 7 iconic places around the state that we have identified as under extreme threat due to the reckless expansion of mining and coal seam gas.
And they have approval for an underground mine within about 500 metres of where we're standing. The impact on that on both the groundwater system, which this river relies on, as well as the drips and seeps and springs, but also the movement, land movements may undermine and threaten the actual fragility of these cliff faces.
It's just been fascinating to walk through the whole of this gully right up to the Drip. It's just a marvellous place that should be kept.
We are trying to get this area into National Park. At the moment it is owned, lock, stock and barrel, freehold, by a mining company who managed to convert a lease a year or so ago to freehold title. Now we believe it should be still retained for public ownership and become properly protected under legislation under a national park tenure.
There are so many iconic spots, and Elizabeth, I think you've seen a lot, and I think that this would...
This is very special.
Very special.
Yes.
And they make a total, all the different iconic spots, and it's very little skin off the mining company's nose to let this be a national park at the Drip and not have long tunnel mining underground, which will empty the aquifers, stop the drip from dripping, and the whole thing will dry up, and it'll be a great tragedy if this happens. But any decent government would have that as a mandatory thing, is to mark all these iconic spots that must be pulled back from. Totally irresponsible just to let the mining companies set the agenda with this.
Subsequently, the Moolarben coal mine has started an exploration program to the north to actually drill and explore possible expansions of their southern approval mine, Moolarben coal mine, with a tunnel, so it's been suggested, under the river to mine the coal to the north.
Yes, that's the horror of it, that they can contemplate going under a river because of the water that's so essential in this country, that's so important. The government says on one hand we've got to look after water, and on the other hand they're allowing mining to take away water, to take away incredible rivers.
It's a woodland that is grown on aeolian sand, and that makes it unique. It's probably more to the benefit of the botanists, the tree people. I'm no expert in that field, but it is a very rare stand of timber, and the judge was aware of it, the scientific committee have registered it, and they've said don't touch it. Even the department's own expert, a guy from Umwelt, said don't touch it. Now that was an expert that was employed by the Department of Planning, and they still said, I'm sorry, there's too much coal under that. This is the Department of Planning. There's too much coal under that. Reject your recommendation, and that's what they did. So their own expert, Travis Peake, was ignored. I mean, it's unbelievable, and all for the price of coal. And they were blatant enough to say the mine strenuously objected to this, so we're going to approve it.
We're recent to the area, I suppose. We built here 4 years ago, and we're just so impressed with the spirit of the Bulga community. And in fact, we got the what was it, the Bulga Spirit?
Oh, the Bush Spirit Award.
Bush Spirit Award this last year, and you know, not everyone in the community. Obviously, you don't get everyone, but the bulk of the people that we've met, and we just can't believe that the spirit they've got.
Because some of the people were a bit unhappy because they felt we would not win, and felt they should get out whilst they can before the real estate values headed even further south. And I've had calls from some of those people who've said, thank you very much, you've saved the village, we're staying.
The Pilliga is an island of trees in the middle of a vast sea of farmland, the last big forest left in inland New South Wales.
We're here in the heart of the Pilliga forest, the largest intact remnant of temperate woodland in the eastern half of Australia. Eric Rolls once wrote of this place, "It is busy with trees, with animals and with men. It is lonely and beautiful. It is 1,000,000 wild acres, and there is no other forest like it."
Where it's coming into the foothills of the Warrumbungles, very beautiful country.
It's home to more than 24 threatened species and hundreds of species of plants and native wildlife.
It's got a great mix of habitats. There's forest, there's grassland, there's hilly areas, different kinds of soil, so you get a lot of different kinds of birds and reptiles and mammals, but mostly birds and reptiles and insects, and it's full of life, full of life. There's hundreds of kinds of birds, and for a bird watcher it's paradise.
People ask me why would I live in the middle of nowhere, and I just think, how can you not live here, because it's so beautiful.
It's important that those who care for this place stand in its defence. Local communities in this region, farmers, environmentalists, concerned residents are working together to raise people's awareness of the Pilliga forest.
The Pilliga is the recharge area for the Great Artesian Basin, the southern recharge area. It's a very sandy country, people can't do a lot with it, so that's why it's still here, but it performs a function, and that is water filtration.
A gas field in this place would spread across tens of thousands of hectares, fragmenting the forest with gas wells, gas pads, pipelines and roads. This gas field presents a very grave threat to the Pilliga forest.
If you coal seam gas mine it, that might muck up the water, and I don't think that's a good idea. Most of inland New South Wales relies on the Great Artesian Basin to produce food.
No, the coal seam gas is it's very close to us.
In recent months, local community groups have documented dozens of breaches and pollution incidents at the existing pilot production field.
You have to stay here for a while to experience that, and then you know what you miss out or what you destroy.
It's important that the Pilliga is protected now and for the future. This is no place for coal seam gas.
I started campaigning against coal seam gas as soon as I found out about it. Not against it, actually. I wasn't against it to start with. I wanted to find out about it. Everything I've researched about it leads me to believe that it is it's just a terrible thing for the environment.
And I'd say also because of the fact that we're totally surrounded by national parks, and the furthest part of the Putty Valley from the boundary of a national park is only approximately 5 to 6 kilometres.
This is an area that flows into the Colo River, which is meant to be a wilderness river, which is only one, I think, left in New South Wales. And that's where our water goes. And then that flows then into the Hawkesbury. There is nothing that is more important than water. Nothing can live without it.
So that any damage to the aquifers, water table, or the ecology generally is bound to have a vast effect on the national parks. And of course we have the famous Wallamai pine just close to the boundary of Putty.
Now, some people in this community believe that they're going to get jobs from this industry. All the research that I've done shows that they probably won't. They have just renewed the lease on the licence on the southern end of the valley. I think the only way we can do it is to have legal action and direct action. We will sort of get a group together to stop them from entering the area.
Because we're in a lucky position in this valley that there's only one road which accesses the whole valley.
There's a lot of people who want to save this valley because of the parks and of the area that it's in. And we'll get a lot of support from outside for this. I believe that common sense just has to prevail, and common sense is the water.
Bulga might be a small community, but it's in a beautiful area of Australia, and the people who choose to live there because they find that to be home for them.
Well, you're on the Great Dividing Range here where we are. There's a lot of different plant life and animal life that can't be sustained if the trees are cut down and pushed away like they're doing.
And what we have is a tableland box woodland which comes right up and into the pagodas.
But once they've mined and collapsed, there's nothing you can do about it. You can't just glue them back together. It'll be gone forever.
Coalpack are saying there's tons of this everywhere else, 60,000 hectares they're saying, on the edge of Nunes Plateau and further west towards the Northern Wallamai National Park. However, the pagoda vegetation here is quite unique.
Yes, I was a miner for 15 to 16 years at Angus Place Underground.
Open cut mining is a completely different thing, and that's what the Coalpack Consolidation Project is all about.
The expansion proposal should not go ahead because of what it's doing to the immediate area here around the range, and to the township itself at Cullumbullen with the dust that they cannot suppress.
There has been a lot said in the media regarding the local jobs, which are important. There are health issues involved with open cut mining, and the New South Wales Department of Health has even submitted some reports to the Department of Planning regarding that. Local doctors have spoken about those things as well, and just from my perspective and for many of the people in town, logically it doesn't make sense.
There's certain areas that should be no-go zones, and this is one of those high biodiversity conservation areas that we shouldn't lose.